Hey, what's up guys? Anton here and welcome to another episode of Marketer Monday. Now listen, if you watched last week's episode of the show, I was out in Boise, Idaho. Again, I went there for a mastermind and it was really like the highest level mastermind that I've ever been part of, to be perfectly honest. This was kind of like me meeting with a group of people that I never met before. So it's not like my typical conversations, I guess, with friends who have businesses where I get a ton of value out of, but this was more of like being put in a room with a bunch of people who, at least at first, were strangers. And the way the mastermind worked is people would basically go up on the stage. They would spend about 15 minutes talking about somewhere they succeeded in business. Then they would spend maybe 10 minutes or so talking about somewhere they need help. And then everyone who else, in the mastermind was there in the crowd, including myself, would offer input and feedback and advice and try to help the person on stage with whatever they were going through. Now, there was a lot of really good stuff that came up. I mean, I have, way too many takeaways to talk about in this one video. I could probably make videos for the next year about things like I, learned and like little different tricks that I picked up. Definitely a lot of cool stuff that we're going to be implementing on Performance Marketer throughout this year. And I'm sure, on our blog and on our YouTube channel and in the vault, you're going to see a bunch of these changes. But what I wanted to talk about in this video, first of all, I guess, is the main theme that I saw over and over. And then I'm going to show you guys what I actually talked about, like what my what I guess my big thing was, right? Like how I was trying to help people, what's working that I wanted to share. But the main thing, guys, that I picked up between everyone that got on stage that was seeking advice, it almost always came back to like them overextending themselves almost, right? And them trying to overcomplicate things instead of just going with the simple formula that works over and over again. And I definitely see myself doing this too. Basically what happens with entrepreneurs is you find something that works and it's working and that's great. And then you want to take it to the next level. But instead of just kind of like trying to, duplicate what's working, you try to mix in all different pieces. And then what eventually happens is there's so many pieces mixed in that original thing doesn't even work as well as it used to because you're trying to add on to it rather than just kind of fill it more or improve it. So I'm going to give you the best example I guess I can of this. Most of the people at this mastermind, they either sell software or they sell services or they sell online courses. And the majority of us, I guess, of the people there, the way that they bring in new customers is through webinars. So they teach on webinars, they sell on webinars, and that's, in my opinion, by far the best way to acquire customers. And by the way, I have a bunch of other Marketer Mondays episodes that I've done about webinars. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll link below this video to those if you want to go back and kind of learn like our process for webinars, what our pre-webinar email sequence look like, what our post-webinar sequence looks like. Again, I'll link to all that. But mainly what people were trying to do is they would find a webinar system that worked for them, and then they would want to try to just mix in all this other stuff with it, try to sell a million different ways, and end up maybe not losing sales, but not growing at the scale that they wanted to. So what the main takeaway was for everyone who has a successful webinar is to go ahead and basically, just keep doing it every week, but fill your funnel with new people. So what does that mean? Let's say you do one webinar, and this is also where some people get held up. They think, well, if I'm going to do a webinar every week, I need to create a new webinar every week. No, you don't. Go to any comedy show, right? The comics do the same act every like day for a year, usually more than a year. They're doing the same material. Then they'll introduce a new one, right? Go see your favorite band. They're going to play the same songs, have the same set list, and they're going to do that probably until their next album comes out, right? Maybe a year, maybe 2 years. So it's the same thing, guys, with webinars. Once you find one that works, once you get your current message, what you want to share with people, once you get that down, then it's your job to get as many people as possible onto that webinar, right? Make sure everyone sees it so that you could share your message and of course, so that they could buy your product. So I guess the main thing is once you find that, your focus is now bringing traffic in, right? How do you fill that webinar funnel? Now, that's kind of what I shared in my presentation, what we do to kind of bring people in to these webinars. So what we're going to do is we'll come back here. I'm going to, draw some stuff out and I'll show you guys what we do to fill our funnels. All right, so I thought a good starting point for this section of the video would be to show what most people do, okay? Let's say this is your webinar, right? and it's your goal to get as many people as possible on here, because again, that's your main selling channel. And I truly do believe that if you sell software, if you sell services, if you sell any type of high-end thing, if you sell like literally like any kind of online course or info product, that is how you should sell. But here's where most people get it wrong, right? They're running traffic typically from Facebook. I love that. We do the same thing, but they're showing ads that tell people about the webinar, okay? So people they don't know yet, people that don't know them, they're showing them ads telling them, hey, I have a webinar, go ahead and register for it, and they're trying to get people to go to the webinar page and register. Now, with this, it is possible to be able to register people for not too much money. I mean, you can get pretty affordable leads to do that, but there's a couple problems with that, okay? The first problem is that once you get these people on the webinar, that's typically the first time they're ever going to hear your voice. That's typically the first time they're ever going to hear your story and hear your message. So when they first come onto your email list and come into your world through this, there's not a high chance that they're going to buy right away. And it's really because they're not indoctrinated. That means you didn't give them a chance to get to know you and to really decide if they want to buy from you or not. So even if you deliver an amazing presentation on your webinar, even if you just, share so much and get them all excited, still, it's not that likely that the person who doesn't know you yet is going to give you a bunch of money, after 90 minutes of talking to them. So here's what we do, okay? This helps in a couple ways. Instead of showing people on Facebook basically ads that say, hey, we're doing a webinar, you should register, we give them other things, right? So if this webinar is about, if it's about e-commerce and that's our webinar, we're gonna help people with e-commerce, we're not gonna say, hey, want to get on a webinar about e-commerce? We're gonna say, hey, here are, a list of products that you could sell online. Hey, here's how you could find suppliers. Hey, here's how you can get traffic to your e-commerce store, right? So they're all different topics. And we are doing basically lead generation. So we're sending people to different pages where they can opt in and where they can get something of value from us. Now, once we do that, we then invite those people to the webinar. So what we basically did is add an extra step in between the process of inviting people to our webinar. But what this allows us to do, once again, is to indoctrinate them because we're giving them for free something of value here. Nothing crazy, usually some simple reports, but things that definitely someone could read in a few minutes and get a ton of value out of. So instead of going for that first ask, we never do this, okay? We give them something great. They get on our email list, we give them that thing they asked for, then we invite them to the webinar. By the time they get on, they already know who we are, we've already demonstrated that we know what we're talking about through our free thing, and they're much more likely to buy. Now that's one of the benefits. The other huge benefit, right, the other massive benefit of this, and this goes back to the mastermind, the reason people start trying more and more things is because their webinar ads get stale basically, right? Like everyone on Facebook, for example, if that's where they're running their ads, has seen they're doing a webinar, okay? And they've seen it and they've seen it and they've seen it and they've seen it, and they get blind to it. The people that wanted to get on, the people who weren't interested still aren't interested. When you use this method, when you have different front-end offers, I've made videos on this also, I'll link to below this. When you do that, it allows you to change your messaging. It allows you to always have something new. And even though there are these small things, it really just allows you to connect with people in different ways, which is important because not everyone is going to be interested in your webinar. So with these front end things, we've tested, up to over 10 at a time. We typically have between 3 and 5 of them always running. Again, giving something of value for free, then inviting people to the webinars. Not only does it allow us to not have our ads get stale, it allows us to do the one thing that we do best over and over and over again with new leads coming in. So listen guys, I hope that makes sense. It's a really simple way to expand your market size and your reach, and it's a really simple way to increase your conversions on webinars. So hope that made sense to everyone. If it does, definitely leave a comment below and let me know. I've been making these videos now for a while, I think like half a year. So kind of trying to decide what we want to do with this YouTube channel, whether or not the new trainings will all be in our vault or whether they'll still be public facing. So if you are watching this, if you're getting value, please do let me know by giving this video a thumbs up or by leaving a comment on YouTube. And definitely subscribe to this channel because again, every week when I make a new video, that's how you'll get notified. So that being said, I hope you guys got value. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week for Marketer Monday.